The laughter echoed through the classroom, bouncing off the sterile walls and landing squarely on Ethan's slouched shoulders. His classmates erupted in jeers as one of the bullies, a tall boy named Jackson, dangled Ethan's worn-out notebook high above his head. "Come on, genius," Jackson sneered. "Show us one of your big ideas, or is your brain as broken as those shoes you always wear?" Ethan's sneakers, scuffed and frayed at the edges, had been the subject of ridicule for months. They were hand-me-downs from his older brother, 2 sizes too big, and patched with duct tape to keep them from falling apart. But Ethan didn't care about his shoes, or at least he pretended not to. His mind was usually somewhere else, lost in a world of numbers, equations, and possibilities. Yet, in moments like these, even his brilliant mind couldn't shield him from the sting of humiliation. He reached up, his hand trembling slightly, trying to retrieve his notebook. "Please, Jackson," Ethan said quietly, his voice barely audible over the laughter. "Just give it back." Jackson smirked, flipping through the pages. "What's all this junk?" "Math problems." "Oh wait, are these your secret plans to finally get friends?" His cronies burst into laughter again, egging him on. Ethan stood there, his face burning with embarrassment. The room felt suffocating, the jeers growing louder, more pointed. But then something unexpected happened. Ethan clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. For the first time, he didn't look away. His eyes locked on Jackson's, steady and unwavering. "Laugh all you want," Ethan said, his voice stronger now. "One day, you'll wish you understood what's in that notebook." The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of Ethan's words hanging in the air. Jackson blinked, taken aback by the sudden defiance, before scoffing and tossing the notebook to the ground. "Whatever, loser," he muttered, but the bravado in his tone was gone. A quiet genius. Ethan wasn't just a quiet kid who liked math. He was extraordinary. At night, while other kids played video games or scrolled through their phones, Ethan sat at the small, creaky table in his family's living room, poring over math books he'd borrowed from the library. His family couldn't afford new textbooks, so he made do with whatever he could find, filling the gaps with his insatiable curiosity and raw talent. The numbers spoke to him in a way nothing else did. Where others saw frustration and confusion, Ethan saw patterns, beauty, and infinite possibilities. He could solve complex equations in his head faster than most people could type them into a calculator. But he kept his gift hidden, partly out of modesty and partly out of fear. He knew that standing out could make him an even bigger target. At home, life wasn't much easier. His mom worked 2 jobs to keep the family afloat, and his older brother, once his biggest supporter, had been deployed overseas. Ethan often found himself alone, except for his dreams of someday escaping the confines of his small town through the power of his intellect. "You're going to do something amazing," his mom would tell him during the rare moments they had together. "Don't let anyone make you feel small, Ethan. You're worth so much more than they can see." But at school, it was hard to believe her words. The bullying wasn't just occasional, it was relentless. From the snide remarks about his clothes to the outright physical intimidation, Ethan endured it all in silence. His teachers noticed, but rarely intervened, chalking it up to boys being boys, and Ethan, not wanting to cause more trouble, never complained. The announcement. Everything changed one morning when their math teacher, Mrs. Whittaker, made an announcement that sent ripples through the classroom. "Class, I have exciting news," she began, her voice tinged with enthusiasm. "Our school has been invited to participate in the statewide math competition this year. It's a prestigious event, and the winner will receive a scholarship to a summer program at one of the top universities in the country." The room buzzed with murmurs. Most students dismissed the announcement, but a few, like Jackson, saw it as an opportunity for glory. Ethan, however, felt his heart race. A scholarship to a top university. It was more than a dream. It was a lifeline. Mrs. Whittaker continued, "I'll be holding tryouts next week to determine who will represent our school. If you're interested, come see me after class." Ethan's mind whirred with possibilities. This was it. This was his chance to prove himself, not just to his classmates, but to himself. But as the bell rang and students filed out of the room, he noticed Jackson lingering by Mrs. Whittaker's desk. "Of course, I'll try out," Jackson boasted. "I'm practically a genius, anyway." Ethan sighed. He could already hear the taunts if he dared to compete. "The class joke thinks he's smart now," he imagined them saying. But deep down, something stronger than fear began to stir, a quiet determination that refused to be silenced. The decision. That night, Ethan sat at the kitchen table, staring at his battered notebook. The decision weighed heavily on him. Competing in the tryouts meant putting himself directly in the spotlight, opening himself up to more ridicule. But it also meant a chance to show everyone who he truly was. His mother walked in, exhausted from a long shift. She noticed the tension on his face and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" Ethan hesitated before explaining the competition and his fears. His mom listened quietly, her face softening with understanding. "You've spent your whole life hiding your light, Ethan," she said gently. "But maybe it's time to let the world see it. Don't let fear hold you back. You're stronger than you think." Her words lingered in his mind long after she'd gone to bed. By the time the sun rose, Ethan had made his decision. He would compete. The tryouts. The day of the tryouts arrived faster than Ethan expected. As he walked into the classroom, he felt the weight of every stare. Jackson smirked as Ethan took a seat at the front. "Didn't know you had a death wish, genius," Jackson whispered, leaning over. "Better not embarrass yourself." Ethan ignored him, focusing on the test Mrs. Whittaker handed out. The room fell silent as the students worked through the challenging problems. The tension palpable. Ethan's mind came alive. The numbers danced in his head, each problem unraveling effortlessly. By the time he finished, he glanced around and realized he was the first to complete the test. He hesitated, then confidently walked up to Mrs. Whittaker's desk to submit his paper. The results. The next day, Mrs. Whittaker stood at the front of the class, holding the sheet of paper. "I'm proud to announce that the top scorer in the tryouts, and the student who will represent our school at the state competition, is Ethan Hayes." The room erupted, not in applause, but in disbelief. Jackson's face twisted in anger. "What? That can't be right." "It's right," Mrs. Whittaker said firmly. "Ethan earned the spot fair and square." Ethan's heart pounded as he processed her words. He'd done it. For the first time, the jeers and laughter didn't matter. He had proven something, to himself and everyone else. As he gathered his things to leave, Jackson blocked his path. "You got lucky this time, Hayes," he spat. "But don't think you're better than me." Ethan met his glare with a calmness he hadn't felt before. "It's not about being better, Jackson. It's about being me." As he walked away, the classroom buzzed with whispers, and for the first time, Ethan felt the weight of possibility on his shoulders. This was just the beginning. Cliffhanger. Ethan had earned his place, but the road ahead was far from easy. The state competition loomed, and the stakes were higher than ever. Would he rise to the challenge, or would the pressure and the bullies prove too much? Ethan stared at the announcement board in the hallway, his name glaring back at him as if daring him to believe it. Ethan Hayes, state math competition representative. A part of him wanted to feel pride, but another, larger part was consumed by unease. He'd won the tryouts, but the whispers, the side glances, and the subtle scoffs from his classmates lingered in the air like a storm waiting to break. "I can't believe they picked him," he overheard a girl mutter to her friend as they walked past. "What if he embarrasses the whole school?" Ethan adjusted his backpack, clutching the straps tightly as he made his way to class. Each step felt heavier than the last. For a moment, he wondered if they were right. What if he wasn't good enough? What if he failed? A rocky start. Ethan's first meeting with Mrs. Whittaker to prepare for the state competition didn't go as planned. She handed him a thick binder filled with advanced problems, the kind that even college students would struggle with. "These are the types of questions you'll face," she said, smiling warmly. "I know it seems daunting, but I believe you can handle it." Ethan nodded, flipping through the pages. The numbers and symbols were familiar, but the complexity was overwhelming. He bit his lip, doubt creeping in again. "You've got this, Ethan," Mrs. Whittaker encouraged. "Just take it one step at a time. Remember, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to give it your best." Her words were kind, but they didn't erase the pressure Ethan felt. That evening, he spread the binder across his kitchen table and dove in. The first problem took him an hour to solve, the second even longer. By the time the clock struck midnight, he'd only completed 3 problems, and his head throbbed from exhaustion. His mom walked into the kitchen, rubbing her tired eyes. "Ethan, you're still up." He sighed, pushing the binder away. "I don't know if I can do this, Mom. It's a lot." She sat beside him, her expression soft but firm. "Ethan, do you remember what I told you when you were little? About climbing mountains?" He nodded faintly. She told him that every mountain, no matter how tall, could be climbed, one step at a time. "You've already started climbing this one," she said. "Don't stop now. Even if you stumble, even if it feels impossible, keep going. You're stronger than you think." Her words sparked something in him, a small but steady flame. Ethan closed the binder and decided to get some sleep. Tomorrow, he would climb again. The bully strikes back. The next day at school, Ethan found himself cornered in the hallway by Jackson and his cronies. Jackson leaned against the lockers, his arms crossed, a smirk playing on his lips. "Look at you, Hayes," Jackson sneered. "Big shot now, huh? Representing the school at some nerd contest." Ethan tried to step around him, but Jackson blocked his path. "You think you're special just because you can solve a few math problems. Newsflash, nobody cares." Ethan met Jackson's gaze, his heart pounding. He wanted to say something, to stand up for himself, but the words wouldn't come. Jackson grabbed Ethan's binder and flipped through it carelessly. "Let's see what you've got here," he said, tearing out a page. Ethan's stomach twisted as Jackson crumpled it into a ball and tossed it to the ground. "Stop it," Ethan said, his voice trembling but firm. "You don't have to do this." Jackson raised an eyebrow, surprised by Ethan's defiance. For a moment, the bully seemed unsure of himself, but he quickly masked it with a laugh. "Whatever, genius. Good luck at your little contest. Don't embarrass us too much." As Jackson and his friends walked away, Ethan bent down to pick up the crumpled paper. His hand shook, but his resolve hardened. He was done letting Jackson's words define him, an unexpected ally. That evening, as Ethan worked on his binder at the library, he noticed someone sitting across from him. It was Marcus, one of Jackson's former friends. Marcus had drifted away from the bully crowd months ago, but Ethan had never spoken to him directly. "You're really good at this stuff, huh?" Marcus said, nodding toward the equations Ethan was working on. Ethan looked up, unsure if Marcus was mocking him. "I guess," he said cautiously. Marcus leaned back in his chair. "I used to think Jackson was cool, you know. But the way he treats people, it's not right. I've been meaning to say, I'm sorry for all the times I laughed at his jokes. I shouldn't have." Ethan blinked, taken aback. "Thanks, I guess." Marcus smiled. "You're going to crush that competition, Ethan. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt a flicker of genuine confidence. Maybe not everyone was against him. Late nights and breakthroughs. The weeks leading up to the competition were a blur of late nights, endless equations, and fleeting moments of doubt. Ethan's progress was slow at first, but with each problem he solved, he felt a little more capable. One evening, as he tackled a particularly tricky problem, something clicked. The patterns he'd always loved began to reveal themselves in ways he hadn't noticed before. The numbers flowed together like pieces of a puzzle, each one fitting perfectly into place. He grinned, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten. For the first time, he didn't just feel like he was preparing for the competition. He felt like he was ready for it. Facing the doubters. The day before the competition, Mrs. Whittaker gathered the class to wish Ethan luck. She spoke warmly about his dedication and talent, but the room was filled with skeptical faces. "Don't choke, Hayes," Jackson muttered under his breath, loud enough for everyone to hear. A few students laughed nervously. Ethan glanced around the room, taking in the mix of doubt and indifference. Then he stood up, his voice steady. "I'm not doing this for you," he said, meeting Jackson's gaze. "I'm doing this for me." The room fell silent. For once, Jackson had no comeback. The calm before the storm. That evening, Ethan sat on his bed, staring at the binder one last time. His mom knocked on the door and walked in, holding a small wrapped package. "What's this?" Ethan asked, surprised. "Open it," she said, smiling. Inside was a brand new notebook, its cover smooth and pristine. Ethan's eyes widened. "Mom, this must have cost." "Don't worry about that," she interrupted. "You've worked so hard, Ethan. You deserve something special for tomorrow." Ethan hugged her tightly, tears welling in his eyes. The notebook wasn't just a gift, it was a symbol of her belief in him. Cliffhanger. The stage is set. As Ethan packed his bag for the competition, his heart raced with a mix of nerves and excitement. The doubts, the bullying, the late nights, they had all led to this moment. He wasn't just representing his school, he was representing himself, his family, and every quiet kid who had ever been underestimated. But the real challenge was yet to come. Would his preparation be enough? Would he rise to the occasion, or would the pressure prove too much? With his new notebook in hand, and his mom's words echoing in his mind, Ethan took a deep breath. Tomorrow would be the biggest day of his life, and he was ready to face it. Inside the auditorium, the atmosphere was electric. The stage was set with desks arranged in neat rows, each one equipped with a clipboard, pens, and a small timer. A massive screen hung behind the stage, displaying the competition's name in bold letters. Statewide Mathematics Challenge 2024. Ethan found his assigned desk, marked with his name and school. As he settled into his seat, he noticed the student next to him, a girl with glasses and an air of quiet confidence, glance his way. "First time?" she asked, offering a small smile. Ethan nodded. "Yeah. You?" She chuckled. "Third. But don't let that scare you. Just focus on your work. You'll do fine." Her words were kind, but they didn't ease the knot in his stomach. He took a deep breath and pulled out his new notebook, the one his mom had given him the night before. He traced his fingers over the smooth cover, drawing strength from the gesture. The first round. The competition began with a loud chime, and the first set of problems appeared on the screen. Ethan's heart raced as he scanned the questions. They were tough, much tougher than anything he'd practiced, but they weren't impossible. The timer on his desk began to tick. 30 minutes. He picked up his pen and started working. The room was silent except for the sound of scribbling and the occasional creak of a chair. As the minutes ticked by, Ethan fell into a rhythm. The numbers flowed naturally, and for the first time, he felt a flicker of confidence. But just as he reached the last problem, his pen stopped working. He shook it frantically, but no ink came out. Panic set in. He glanced around, unsure if he was allowed to ask for another pen. The timer kept ticking, a cruel reminder of the precious seconds he was losing. He closed his eyes, willing himself to stay calm. Then he remembered the spare pen in his backpack. He fumbled with the zipper, his hands shaking, and finally pulled it out. With only 3 minutes left, he returned to the problem, his mind racing to catch up. When the timer buzzed, Ethan put down his pen, his chest heaving. He'd finished, barely. The whisper of doubt. During the break, Ethan sat alone at a small table in the corner of the cafeteria, nibbling on a sandwich his mom had packed. Around him, other students chatted and laughed, their confidence unshaken by the first round. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he didn't belong. "Hey, Hayes." The voice was unmistakable. Ethan looked up to see Jackson, flanked by two other students from their school. Jackson had somehow managed to sneak in as a spectator, despite not being a participant. "Surprised you made it this far," Jackson said, smirking. "But don't get too comfortable. Everyone here is way out of your league." Ethan said nothing, refusing to give Jackson the satisfaction of a response. Instead, he focused on his sandwich, his mind replaying the morning's challenges. Doubt crept in again, whispering insidious thoughts. What if Jackson's right? What if you're just a joke? But then he remembered his mom's words, "Every mountain can be climbed, one step at a time." Ethan straightened his back. He wasn't going to let Jackson or anyone else get into his head. He'd made it this far, and he wasn't about to give up now. The surprise twist. The second round was unlike anything Ethan had prepared for. Instead of individual problems, the competitors were divided into teams and given a collaborative challenge. Ethan was paired with the girl he'd spoken to earlier, along with two other students he didn't know. Their task: solve a complex, real-world problem using mathematics. The scenario involved optimizing resources for a fictional city experiencing a water crisis. They had 2 hours to come up with a solution and present it to a panel of judges. Ethan's initial panic was palpable. He wasn't used to working in teams, and he worried he wouldn't be able to contribute. But as they brainstormed, he began to find his footing. "What if we model the water distribution as a network graph?" he suggested, his voice hesitant at first, but gaining strength as he explained. "We can use algorithms to find the most efficient paths." The others looked at him, surprised, but then the girl nodded. "That's brilliant. Let's do it." Ethan's mind came alive as they worked together, each member contributing their strengths. By the time they presented their solution, Ethan felt a surge of pride. For the first time, he wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. The climax. The final round was the most challenging yet. Each competitor faced the same set of problems, but this time, the audience watched their every move. The pressure was immense. As Ethan worked through the problems, sweat beaded on his forehead. He could feel the weight of every eye on him, especially Jackson's, but he pushed the distractions aside, focusing solely on the numbers. The last problem was a killer, a multi-layered equation that required not just skill but creativity. Ethan's mind raced, piecing together fragments of logic and intuition. He was the last one working, the timer ticking dangerously close to zero. Then, in a flash of clarity, he saw the solution. His pen flew across the page, and just as the buzzer rang, he wrote down the final answer. The results. The judges deliberated for what felt like an eternity. Ethan sat in his seat, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. Around him, other competitors exchanged nervous glances, but Ethan couldn't bring himself to look at anyone. Finally, the head judge stepped forward, holding a sheet of paper. "And the winner of the statewide Mathematics Challenge 2024 is..." The room fell silent. "Ethan Hayes." For a moment, Ethan thought he'd misheard. The applause started slowly, then grew into a thunderous ovation. He stood, his legs shaky, and made his way to the stage. As he accepted the trophy, the head judge shook his hand. "You didn't just win, Ethan. You inspired everyone here. Your perseverance and creativity were remarkable." Ethan's chest swelled with pride. For the first time in his life, he felt seen, not as the class joke, but as someone who mattered. Reflection. That evening, as Ethan returned home, he found his mom waiting for him on the porch. Her eyes lit up when she saw the trophy in his hands. "I knew you could do it," she said, pulling him into a hug. "I'm so proud of you." Ethan smiled, his heart full. The doubts, the bullying, the sleepless nights, they had all led to this moment. He wasn't just a quiet kid with a love for numbers anymore. He was a champion, a role model, and a testament to the power of resilience. Cliffhanger. What's next? But Ethan's journey was far from over. The win opened doors he'd never dreamed of. An invitation to a prestigious summer program, offers of mentorship from top mathematicians, and even a scholarship. Yet, with new opportunities came new challenges. Would he rise to meet them, or would the weight of expectation prove too much? Ethan Hayes sat in his small, modest bedroom, the trophy from the statewide mathematics challenge, gleaming on his desk under the soft glow of the desk lamp. The events of the past few days felt surreal, like a dream he was afraid to wake from. His mother's prideful tears, the applause of the crowd, and the judge's praise still echoed in his mind. But now, as the initial euphoria faded, a new reality set in. His life was about to change forever. New opportunities, new pressures. Word of Ethan's victory spread like wildfire through the school and the local community. The once overlooked boy with patched sneakers and a shy demeanor was now a local hero. The school principal invited him to speak at an assembly. His teachers lavished him with praise. Even the mayor sent a handwritten letter congratulating him on his achievement. But with the accolades came expectations. A week after the competition, Ethan received an email that left him speechless. An invitation to attend the prestigious National Mathematics Symposium, a summer program reserved for the country's brightest young minds. It was an opportunity of a lifetime, complete with a full scholarship and the chance to work alongside top mathematicians. Yet, as he read the email for the third time, excitement gave way to doubt. Could he really compete on a national stage? Was he smart enough to keep up with the best? The familiar voice of self-doubt whispered in his mind, dragging him back to the days when he was the class joke. The school assembly. The school assembly in Ethan's honor was meant to celebrate his victory, but it became a stark reminder of how much things had changed. As he stood on the stage, nervously gripping the microphone, he scanned the crowd. The faces of his classmates stared back, some filled with admiration, others with skepticism. "Thank you for this honor," Ethan began, his voice steady but soft. "I never imagined I'd be here, standing in front of all of you. Winning the competition wasn't just about solving math problems. It was about proving to myself that I could overcome the doubts and fears that held me back." The audience erupted in applause, but not everyone was cheering. Ethan caught sight of Jackson in the back row, his arms crossed, his expression cold. Even after everything, Jackson still found ways to intimidate Ethan, reminding him that not everyone would be on his side, no matter how much he achieved. The mentor's visit. A week after the assembly, Ethan received another surprise. A visit from Dr. Amelia Carter, a renowned mathematician, and one of the mentors at the National Mathematics Symposium. She had heard about Ethan's victory and wanted to personally encourage him to attend the program. Ethan's mom welcomed her warmly, offering her a cup of tea as they sat in the living room. Ethan, still in disbelief that someone of Dr. Carter's stature was in his home, fidgeted nervously. "Ethan," Dr. Carter began, her voice kind but authoritative, "I've reviewed your performance at the competition, and I have to say, your potential is extraordinary. The way you approached that final problem, it wasn't just skill, it was innovative." Ethan blushed, unsure how to respond. "But potential," she continued, "is like a seed. It needs the right environment to grow. The symposium isn't just about learning. It's about challenging yourself, stepping out of your comfort zone, and discovering what you're truly capable of." Ethan hesitated. "I don't know if I'm ready," he admitted. "Everyone there will be smarter than me. What if I fail?" Dr. Carter leaned forward, her gaze intense. "Ethan, success isn't about never failing. It's about having the courage to try, to learn, and to grow. Do you think I became a mathematician without making mistakes? Failure is part of the journey." Her words struck a chord. Ethan realized that his fear wasn't about failing. It was about being seen as a failure. He nodded slowly, a spark of determination lighting in his chest. The journey begins. 2 months later, Ethan found himself on a train heading to the National Mathematics Symposium. His mom had packed him a small suitcase and a heartfelt note that he hadn't dared open yet. As the train sped through rolling hills and bustling cities, Ethan stared out the window, his mind a whirlwind of anticipation and anxiety. When he arrived at the symposium, he was greeted by a sprawling campus filled with students from all over the country. They were a diverse group, some loud and confident, others quiet and focused. Ethan felt a pang of insecurity as he noticed the advanced textbooks and gadgets they carried. "Hey, you're Ethan, right?" A boy with curly hair and a wide grin approached him. "I'm Ravi. Saw your name on the winners list. That final equation you solved. Genius." Ethan smiled shyly. "Thanks. It was intense." "You're gonna love it here," Ravi said, clapping him on the back. "It's tough, but it's also the most fun you'll ever have." The challenges of excellence. The symposium was everything Ethan had hoped for, and more. The lectures were fascinating, the challenges exhilarating, and the mentors inspiring. But it was also grueling. Each day was packed with problem-solving sessions, team projects, and intense competitions. Ethan struggled at first. The other students seemed to grasp concepts faster, their answers sharper and more confident. During one particularly difficult session, Ethan froze, unable to complete a problem while others breezed through. The instructor's gaze lingered on him for a moment, and Ethan felt the familiar sting of self-doubt. That night, as he sat in his dorm room, staring at the unfinished problem, he remembered Dr. Carter's words, "Failure is part of the journey." He picked up his pen and tried again, determined to push through. An unexpected ally. As the weeks went on, Ethan found an unexpected ally in Ravi. The two often stayed up late in the common room, bouncing ideas off each other and tackling problems together. Ravi's energy and optimism were infectious, and Ethan began to feel more confident in his abilities. "You know," Ravi said one night, "you're way better at this than you think. You just overthink everything." Ethan laughed. "Is that your professional diagnosis?" "Absolutely," Ravi said, grinning. "Now stop doubting yourself and solve that equation." The breakthrough. The symposium's final challenge was a team competition. Ethan, Ravi, and 2 other students were tasked with creating a mathematical model to predict and mitigate the effects of a natural disaster. It was the most complex problem Ethan had ever faced, but as they worked together, something clicked. Ethan's mind raced with ideas, each one building on the last. He sketched diagrams, wrote equations, and explained his thoughts with a clarity that surprised even himself. His team listened intently, incorporating his suggestions and refining their approach. When they presented their model to the judges, the room was silent for a moment before erupting into applause. The judges praised their innovation and teamwork, and Ethan felt a swell of pride unlike anything he'd ever experienced. Reflection. As the symposium came to an end, Ethan stood on the campus lawn, watching the sun set over the horizon. He pulled out the note his mom had written and finally opened it. "Ethan," it read, "I always knew you were destined for great things. But no matter where life takes you, remember this. Your worth isn't measured by trophies or achievements. It's measured by the kindness in your heart, the courage in your actions, and the person you choose to be. I'm so proud of you. Love, Mom." Tears welled in Ethan's eyes as he folded the note and tucked it into his pocket. The symposium had taught him more than just math. It had taught him the value of perseverance, the power of self-belief, and the importance of staying true to himself. Cliffhanger. The next mountain. Ethan's journey was far from over. As he returned home, new opportunities awaited, scholarships, mentorships, and even a potential internship. But with each new step came new challenges. Would Ethan continue to rise above the doubts, or would the pressures of success take their toll? Ethan returned home from the National Mathematics Symposium, a changed person. The boy who had once slouched in the back of the classroom, trying to avoid attention, was now a young man filled with quiet confidence. His victory and newfound experiences had opened doors he'd never dreamed of, but as his mom's handwritten note reminded him, true worth wasn't found in trophies or accolades, it was found in character. A hero's welcome. When Ethan walked through the front door of his modest home, his mother was waiting for him, arms open wide. She hugged him tightly, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you, Ethan," she whispered. "You've shown everyone what I always knew. You're destined for greatness." Ethan smiled, his chest swelling with pride, but also a tinge of guilt. He thought about the moments of doubt, the times he'd almost given up. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom," he said sincerely. "You're the reason I kept going." The next day at school, Ethan was greeted like a celebrity. Teachers congratulated him, and students who had once ignored him now asked for advice or simply wanted to talk. Even Jackson, his former tormentor, seemed subdued, offering a mumbled congrats as they passed in the hallway. It was a far cry from the days when Ethan was the target of ridicule. But as much as the attention was flattering, it also felt overwhelming. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that people were expecting something more, something bigger, from him now. Opportunities and pressures. Within weeks, Ethan began receiving invitations to speak at events, apply for internships, and even visit prestigious universities. Each opportunity was more dazzling than the last, and his mom encouraged him to seize every one of them. But as the invitations piled up, so did the weight of expectation. One evening, as he sat at the kitchen table surrounded by brochures and letters, Ethan felt a knot of anxiety tightening in his chest. Each decision felt monumental, as if one wrong choice could derail his future. "Do I have to choose everything right now?" he asked his mom, his voice tinged with frustration. She placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Ethan, life isn't about making the perfect choice every time. It's about taking steps, learning from them, and moving forward. You don't have to have it all figured out today." Her words brought some comfort, but Ethan couldn't shake the pressure he felt. For the first time, he began to wonder if success might be as heavy a burden as failure. The unexpected meeting. One afternoon, Ethan received a surprising email from Dr. Amelia Carter, the mentor he had met during the symposium. She invited him to lunch, saying she had something important to discuss. When they met at a quiet cafe in the city, Dr. Carter wasted no time. "Ethan, you've impressed a lot of people, but I want to make sure you're thinking beyond just the next competition or scholarship. Have you considered what you want to do with your talent in the long term?" Ethan hesitated. "I'm not sure yet. I mean, I love math, but I don't know how to turn that into something meaningful." Dr. Carter leaned forward, her eyes intense. "Math isn't just about numbers, Ethan. It's a tool, a language, that can solve real-world problems. You have the potential to make a difference, but only if you decide what matters most to you." Her words stayed with Ethan long after their meeting. For the first time, he began to think about how his talent could impact others, not just himself. The shadow of doubt. Despite his growing confidence, Ethan couldn't completely escape the shadow of self-doubt. One day, as he was walking home from school, Jackson and his friends pulled up beside him in a car. Jackson rolled down the window, his sneer as familiar as ever. "So, genius," Jackson said, "how's it feel to be the school's golden boy? Think you're better than the rest of us now?" Ethan paused, his jaw tightening. He could feel the sting of Jackson's words, but this time they didn't cut as deeply. He took a deep breath and met Jackson's gaze. "No," Ethan said calmly. "I don't think I'm better than anyone. I just decided to stop listening to people who told me I wasn't good enough." For a moment, Jackson seemed taken aback, but he quickly recovered, muttering something under his breath before driving away. Ethan watched the car disappear, a sense of clarity washing over him. He realized that he didn't need everyone's approval. He only needed to believe in himself. A project with purpose. Inspired by Dr. Carter's advice, Ethan decided to take on a project that combined his love for math with his desire to help others. He noticed that many of his classmates, particularly those from lower-income families, struggled with math because they didn't have access to the resources they needed. Ethan approached his school principal with an idea: a peer tutoring program where students could get free help with math after school. The principal was enthusiastic and agreed to support the initiative. Ethan recruited volunteers, created lesson plans, and even used his prize money from the competition to buy supplies. The program quickly became a success, with dozens of students attending each week. Watching his classmates' confidence grow as they mastered concepts they once found impossible was more rewarding than any trophy. A test of integrity. One day, as Ethan was preparing for a tutoring session, he received an email from a prestigious tech company offering him a summer internship. The position was highly competitive, and the pay was substantial, enough to help his mom with their household expenses. But there was a catch. The internship conflicted with the peer tutoring program he'd started. If he accepted the offer, the program would have to shut down for the summer, leaving many students without the support they relied on. Ethan wrestled with the decision for days. The internship was a dream opportunity, but he couldn't ignore the impact his program had on the students he was helping. He sought advice from his mom, Dr. Carter, and even Ravi, who had become one of his closest friends. In the end, Ethan made a choice that surprised even himself. He declined the internship, choosing instead to stay and expand the tutoring program. The decision wasn't easy, but it felt right. Recognition and reflection. Ethan's decision to prioritize his tutoring program didn't go unnoticed. The local newspaper ran a story about his efforts, and the mayor invited him to a community event to recognize his contributions. At the event, Ethan was asked to give a speech. Standing at the podium, he looked out at the crowd, his mom, his classmates, and even some of the students he tutored. Taking a deep breath, he spoke from the heart. "When I started this journey, I thought success was about winning trophies and earning recognition. But I've learned that real success is about making a difference. It's about using what you have to help others and being true to yourself, even when it's hard. I hope we can all find ways to lift each other up, because that's how we create something meaningful." The applause that followed was thunderous, but it wasn't the cheers that mattered to Ethan. It was the sense of fulfillment that came from knowing he'd stayed true to his values. The next chapter. As the school year came to an end, Ethan received another letter, this time from a top university offering him a full scholarship. The letter mentioned his academic achievements, but it also highlighted his community work, calling him a student who embodies the spirit of leadership and compassion. Ethan smiled as he read the letter, his mom beaming beside him. He knew the road ahead would be filled with new challenges, but he was ready. He'd learned that success wasn't about climbing one mountain. It was about continuing to climb, no matter how steep the path. Cliffhanger, a new horizon. Ethan's journey was far from over. With college on the horizon and new opportunities beckoning, he faced the ultimate question: how could he use his gifts to create lasting change in the world? The answer, he knew, would shape the rest of his life. Ethan Hayes stood at the edge of his future. The acceptance letter from the prestigious university rested on his desk, a symbol of everything he'd worked for, everything he'd overcome. The months since his decision to forego a high-profile internship in favor of expanding his tutoring program had been transformative. His efforts had not only helped dozens of students succeed in math, but had also sparked a conversation in his community about the power of education and perseverance. But as Ethan prepared to leave for college, he couldn't help but feel the weight of what he was leaving behind. A farewell to home. The weeks leading up to Ethan's departure were filled with bittersweet moments. His mom tried to hide her emotions, focusing instead on packing his bags and making sure he had everything he needed. But one evening, as they sat together on the porch, she finally let her guard down. "I'm going to miss you," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "But I know you're going to do amazing things, Ethan. Just don't forget where you came from." Ethan nodded, his throat tight. "I won't, Mom. Everything I've done, everything I'll do, it's because of you." The night before he left, the students from his tutoring program surprised him with a small gathering at the community center. They presented him with a scrapbook filled with notes, drawings, and photos, each one expressing gratitude for his guidance. "You changed our lives, Ethan," one student said. "We'll never forget what you did for us." Ethan blinked back tears, realizing that the impact he'd made was far greater than he'd ever imagined. A new beginning. The university campus was a world away from Ethan's small town. The sprawling lawns, towering buildings, and bustling student life were both intimidating and exhilarating. On his first day, Ethan attended an orientation session where he met other first-year students, many of whom shared his love for mathematics and problem-solving. One of his professors, Dr. Elena Navarro, was a renowned mathematician whose work had been instrumental in developing algorithms used in disaster response. During their first lecture, she posed a question that stuck with Ethan. How can we use math to solve humanity's greatest challenges? The question ignited something in him. Ethan had always loved numbers for their elegance and logic, but now he began to see them as tools for creating meaningful change. The struggle to belong. Despite his excitement, Ethan couldn't ignore the challenges of adjusting to college life. His classmates came from prestigious schools, and their confidence and polished demeanor often left him feeling out of place. In his first advanced calculus class, he stumbled over a question that others answered with ease, and the experience rattled him. Later that evening, as he sat in his dorm room staring at his notebook, doubt began to creep in. "Maybe I don't belong here," he thought. "Maybe they made a mistake accepting me." But then he remembered his mom's words, "Don't forget where you came from." He also thought of the students he had helped back home, the lives he had touched. If he could inspire others, he could surely find a way to inspire himself. The next day, Ethan visited Dr. Navarro during her office hours. He explained his struggles and his fear of not measuring up. She listened carefully before offering advice that would stick with him. "Ethan," she said, "everyone here is brilliant in their own way. But brilliance isn't about knowing all the answers. It's about asking the right questions and having the courage to keep learning. You belong here because you've already shown you can do that." Finding his place, Ethan took Dr. Navarro's words to heart. Instead of focusing on his insecurities, he began to embrace the challenges. He formed study groups with his classmates, learned to ask for help when he needed it, and discovered that collaboration often led to breakthroughs he couldn't achieve alone. One evening, as he worked on a group project in the library, a classmate named Sophia struck up a conversation. She had heard about Ethan's tutoring program and was impressed by his commitment to helping others. "You know," she said, "there's a student organization here that works on educational outreach. They mentor kids in underserved communities and run workshops to help them develop STEM skills. You'd be perfect for it." Ethan's eyes lit up. "That sounds amazing. How can I get involved?" A new mission. Joining the student organization reignited Ethan's passion for using math to make a difference. He quickly became a leader within the group, organizing workshops at local schools and creating online resources to help students across the country. His approach was innovative, combining his love for problem-solving with his understanding of the barriers many students faced. One of his most ambitious projects was a mobile app that provided free math tutorials and practice problems tailored to individual learning styles. With the help of his peers and faculty mentors, Ethan brought the app to life, and it quickly gained traction among students and educators alike. The project reminded Ethan of the tutoring program he had started back home, and he often thought about the kids who had inspired him to take this path. He hoped his work would reach even more students, breaking down barriers and opening doors to opportunities they might not have thought possible. An unexpected challenge. As Ethan's reputation grew, so did the pressures. Balancing his coursework, extracurricular activities, and leadership responsibilities became increasingly difficult. One night, after pulling an all-nighter to finish a presentation, he found himself sitting in the campus quad. exhausted and overwhelmed. Dr. Navarro happened to pass by and noticed his state. She sat down beside him, her expression kind but concerned. "You're doing incredible work, Ethan," she said, "but you can't pour from an empty cup. Remember, it's okay to take a step back and recharge. You're not in this alone." Her words were a reminder that even the most passionate individuals needed to prioritize self-care. Ethan began to lean on his peers more, delegating tasks and trusting others to share the load. It was a valuable lesson in leadership and collaboration. A moment of recognition. By the end of his first year, Ethan Zapp had won a national award for innovation in education, and the university hosted a ceremony to honor him and his team. As Ethan stood on the stage, accepting the award, he couldn't help but reflect on his journey. From the boy who had been mocked for his patched sneakers to the young man now addressing a crowd of leaders and innovators, he had come a long way. But what mattered most to him wasn't the recognition. It was the impact his work was having on others. Looking to the future, as Ethan moved forward, he remained grounded in his mission. He continued to expand his educational outreach efforts, partnering with organizations to bring STEM education to underserved communities worldwide. His journey wasn't without challenges, but he faced each one with the resilience and determination he had developed over the years. Ethan also stayed connected to his roots, visiting his hometown regularly and mentoring students from his old school. He never forgot the people who had supported him, and he made it a priority to give back whenever he could. A legacy begins. One evening, as Ethan prepared to deliver a keynote speech at a national conference, he received a text from one of his former students from the tutoring program. The message read, "Hey, Ethan, I just wanted to let you know that I got into college, and I'm majoring in math. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." Ethan smiled, his heart swelling with pride. In that moment, he realized that his greatest achievement wasn't the awards or the recognition. It was the legacy he was building, one life at a time. Final reflection. Ethan's journey had taught him that success wasn't about reaching a destination. It was about the impact made along the way. He had climbed many mountains, but he knew there were more ahead. And with each step, he carried the lessons, the memories, and the unwavering belief that one person could make a difference. Closing thought. Ethan's story is a testament to the power of resilience, the value of community, and the transformative impact of education. His journey continues, inspiring others to find their own paths, overcome their own challenges, and create their own legacies.